This risk and crisis communication study will discuss the successful handling of the PR crisis surrounding Crock-Pot, which occurred in 2018. In order to properly analyse the case study, I'm going to provide a detailed recount of the incident that took place, the impact of the incident, and how the affected company chose to respond. Then the theory behind the crisis will be discussed, with a look at stakeholders and the theory on situational and social media crisis management, in order to see how the crisis was handled and why it can be considered successful crisis management. This case study begins with the airing of an episode of the hit drama This Is Us in 2018. The show was into its second season, and fans had grown to love the characters that made up the Pearson family. The show had a flash-forward, flashback format, with each episode linking the current story with something that characters had experienced in the past when they were younger. As a result, viewers learned that the patriarch of the Pearson family, Jack, who was played by Milo Ventimiglia, had passed away during his children's formative years, which left a big hole in their hearts as adults and had caused a lot of emotional baggage for the family, and for viewers. The This Is Us episode at the centre of the crisis was dedicated to explaining how Jack died. Essentially, the Pearson family home unexpectedly caught ablaze, and Jack made the brave choice to run back into the inferno to save the family dog. Unfortunately, his bravery came at a cost. Shortly after being admitted to hospital for respiratory issues, he quietly and without warning passes away due to excessive smoke inhalation. As it turned out, the house fire which killed Jack was caused by a faulty crock-pot that had been given to the family as a starting out gift from their elderly neighbours. The crock-pot was incredibly old and had short-circuited, causing sparks to ignite in the kitchen, which inevitably engulfed the whole house. Now, it may seem that providing this synopsis takes time away from the theoretical analysis, but emphasising how Jack and the Pearsons' journey was a narrative much loved by viewers provides vital context for the public relations crisis that took place shortly after that particular episode aired on television. Jack's death caused an intense backlash that swept across Twitter and other social media platforms within hours of the episode's conclusion. Fans were quick to condemn and boycott crock-pots, tweeting that they had lost faith in the kitchen appliance and branded it a killer, with some even going as far as committing to throw their crock-pots away or never buy one again. Despite the boycott initially appearing like it might be a short-term social media dust-up about pop culture, the reaction had a real reputational ramification for crock-pot manufacturers. The intense and ongoing backlash caused widespread media attention in the US, with morning shows using the attention to discuss appliance safety and potential fire hazards in the kitchen. Newell Brands, the US manufacturing parent company that acquired the rights to Crock-Pot in 2017, experienced a more than 24% fall in the stock market due to lack of confidence in the product as a result of the episode. Newell were forced to release a statement which said, "For nearly 50 years, with over 100 million crock-pots sold, we have never received any consumer complaints similar to the fictional events portrayed in last night's episode. In fact, the safety and design of our products render this type of event nearly impossible." Despite the days of negative PR surrounding the appliance, the Crock-Pot brand responded to the crisis quickly and creatively. Within 24 hours, the brand released a longer statement to the media and across its social media channels. It also posted ongoing light-hearted tweets about their quality and took the time to respond to hundreds of tweets and posts across cyberspace, even creating their own hashtag #CrockPotIsInnocent, which controlled the message and the conversation. In the following days, Crock-Pot also enlisted the actor who played Jack, Milo Ventimiglia, in a commercial promoting the Super Bowl, joking about the Crock-Pot controversy. Crock-Pot also partnered with Ellen DeGeneres, who handed out Crock-Pots as one of the giveaways on her show. Ultimately, the reaction of the episode died down as Crock-Pot continued to communicate with TV viewers while reiterating its safety and quality standards. The brand's image was gradually restored, and the whole issue, which initially caused significant media attention, reputation damage, and economic downturn, has become a case study into what to do right in the face of crisis. The Super Bowl commercial featuring Milo Ventimiglia and Crock-Pot is available on YouTube. You can view it in full by clicking or following the link provided. The key stakeholders during this crisis include manufacturer Newell's CEO, its executive-level decision-makers and employees, as well as any other individuals associated with the manufacturing and distribution of crock-pots. This may also mean that appliance retailers and other store with staff who sell crock-pots are also in the stakeholder mix, as being affected in sales by the crisis. External stakeholders are a little trickier to quantify, as the episode which sparked the crisis was aired nationwide and could potentially include all US television viewers. However, in stakeholder theory, according to Nadella, it is too easy to confuse stakeholders with publics during large-spread crises. Therefore, to identify stakeholders, we need to apply appropriate context, content, and perception in relation to the crisis. In this case, external stakeholders do not include all potential TV viewers, as many would not have been affected by the television show. The real external stakeholders are the die-hard fans who had built such an emotional connection with the show's characters, more so than regular viewers, thereby feeling strong enough to kickstart the crisis via social media to begin with. Crock-Pot's approach to handling the crisis was to adopt two crisis postures: denial and bolstering. The denial posture seeks to validate the claim that the company at the centre of the crisis is not responsible, and therefore there are no grounds for the character attack. Bolstering are attempts by those affected by crises to identify themselves with something their audience views as positive. The positive associations then become the focal point rather than the character attack. These postures are part of Coombs' situational crisis communication theory, which refocuses attention from company strategy to public perception. This means that by utilising the theory, Crock-Pot adopted a strategic response to the crisis which matched the perceived crisis responsibility attributed to the organisation by stakeholders. In this case, there had been no Crock-Pot-related fatalities in reality, which gave the brand the opportunity to flatly deny any responsibility for a fictional storyline. However, rather than appearing exclusively defensive over television show and perhaps looking negative as a result, Crock-Pot bolstered its reputation by sympathising with This Is Us fans through social media and previously mentioned creative television spots. This positioned Crock-Pot as supporting TV viewers while giving them empathy for their fandom and anguish, ultimately separating them from responsibility for the crisis. Crock-Pot's choice of postures, which ultimately boiled down to the brand playing along with stakeholders until the episode's relevance petered out, is best explained by also applying the social-mediated crisis communication model. This model indicates that in a world where the immediacy and scale of social media can these days inflame PR crises, it is the crisis origin that affects attribution of responsibility, and thus the available crisis response strategies. In other words, publics perceive a crisis with an internal origin as more controllable than a crisis with an external origin, and thus assign higher attribution of responsibility for crises with internal origins. In 2014, Jin, Liu, and Austin hypothesized that publics are more likely to accept an organization's defensive crisis strategies when the crisis origin is external, and that selecting the appropriate crisis message is a function of how a message is conveyed and who the information is sent by, in addition to attribution of responsibility. This is best proven by Crock-Pot's approach. The crisis was based around a fictional story, and therefore of an external origin, not something that Crock-Pot actually did in real life. And deep down, even though they loved the episode and loved the show, TV viewers knew this. So as long as Crock-Pot communicated with sympathy to those who felt deeply by a beloved TV character's death, they could successfully deny any responsibility of the external crisis. Since 2018, when we grade how the crisis was handled, all you need to do is type Crock-Pot Crisis 2018, like I did, into Google and see that it was agreed to be an unmitigated success. There are hundreds of articles, recounts, case studies, and thought pieces from communication experts and industry leaders that commend how Crock-Pot responded to the situation. It has been an example of how to respond correctly to a social media-originated crisis and come out the other end with your reputation intact. The first action is to, according to Coombs' situational crisis communication theory, identify the crisis situation and then determine a course of action based on the stakeholders' perceived severity and responsibility. Then, based on the socially mediated crisis communication model, it is important to determine the crisis origin, which will inform whether or not the chosen course of action is likely to succeed. And this all needs to happen quickly, so a response to the crisis can be made to keep up with the near instantaneous flow of information and communication across social media. That response needs to reflect the perceptions of stakeholders. In this case, Crock-Pot responded quickly by denying any association or responsibility with a fictional story, but also empathized with the stakeholders. This allowed Crock-Pot, in a matter of hours, to brand itself as a fellow fan of the show and an entity that had nothing to do with the crisis.